Kelsey. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I am wearing one of my fancy Booktube hats, and today I am doing the second to last of the Booktube SFF Babbles topics, which is also today a crossover topic with Top 5 Wednesday. I will link all of the information for the Booktube SFF Awards and the Babbles down below, as well as for Top 5 Wednesday. And today's topic is BFFs in SFF. So, best friendships in science fiction and fantasy. Now, because I've done a lot of these Booktube SFF Babbles at this point, I'm doing them all this year. I decided just for myself that now that we're coming towards the end, I didn't want to repeat a bunch of the same books that I'd talked about in other Babbles videos this year. So I decided just for myself that I was only going to put books on this list that I haven't talked about in one of this year's Babbles yet. Which means that a few of the things on this list are books that I've read less recently than the things that tend to jump to mind when I put together these lists. But the first book I want to mention, so I don't forget about it later, is the only one on this list that I don't have a physical copy of. It's a graphic novel, and it is Spell on Wheels. This is by Kate Leth, Meg Levens, and Marissa Louise, and it is a full story collected in one volume that I think includes 5 issues. This is a contemporary fantasy story about a trio of 20-something-year-old witches who are all like roommates living in a house together, and someone breaks into their house and steals some of their magical artifacts, and they all end up going on this road trip to hunt down and reclaim their stuff. And they are just a great, diverse trio with the sort of supportive friendship that I think a lot of people my age sort of aspire to have. Next, I want to talk about another trio of friends, and that is the main trio of characters, Elliot, Luke, and Serene from In Other Lands by Sarah Rees Brennan. Now, this is the sort of friend group where there are, in fact, romantic entanglements between some of these characters during certain points of the book, but regardless of whether any particular pair of them are in a relationship at any given time, these 3 are definitely like a friend group trio. However, this lovable trio is full of miscommunication about exactly what their relationships with each other are. These characters are teenagers. The main character, Elliot, is a boy from our world who goes to this other world, the Borderlands, to study at this like military training academy, but like not in the military track, in like the diplomatic track. Luke and Serene, however, are both warriors. Serene is an elf, and Elliot can be pretty obtuse in a lot of social situations. He thinks Luke, who is pretty sporty, is probably going to be his arch nemesis, and makes a truce with him towards the beginning of their time together at school, that they will both tolerate each other in order to be supportive of Serene. But these 3 are just so much fun to read about. The good times, the heartbreak, all of it. Next is an oldie for me. I read these books back before I joined Booktube, and that is the whole sci-fi fairy tale princess team-up from the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. Now, I was holding up Cinder, the first book, in my thumbnail, but I want to hold up the whole series right now, because each of these books introduces a new main female character to the group. They are all based on fairy tale characters, and they all become such great friends. Each of these 4 gals has a romantic plot and love interest, and I liked some of those relationships more than others, but I appreciate the fact that like at no point in this series were any of the main female characters like fighting over the same love interest, nor do they end up on opposite sides of any big conflict. This is basically just like a growing, expanding crew of friends as the series goes on, and they each have different strengths and skills that end up complementing each other really well, and I think the thing that Marissa Meyer does best in her writing is banter between characters. That is the thing that really made this series such a fast and addictive reading experience for me. And that's what makes me feel warm and fuzzy when I look back on this series and having read it. Like, these 4 girls plus Aiko being BFFs forever. Next, I have a book that sort of has a similar girl team-up situation, but under far less pleasant circumstances. I want to talk about The Refrigerator Monologues by Catherynne and Valente, which is a novella of women's stories who are characters in this fictional superhero universe, although they're all sort of based on pre-existing superhero stories that readers might be familiar with. And the point of this is that these are all characters who have been fridged, which means they've had, like, terrible things happen to them, and they have, for the most part, died in service of a male character's story arc. So this book takes place in Deadtown, which is this world's afterlife, and they all get to meet up together in the afterlife and tell their stories of what happened to them to each other. And it's a very angry novella about the treatment of female characters in the media, but it ends with this sort of image. There's a picture, an illustration of, like, all of these women sitting around enjoying each other's company. And they're not alone, they all understand each other's stories. And then the last book on this list is another one that I read ages ago, and that is Pegasus by Robin McKinley. Now, this was meant to be the first book in a trilogy, and it does end on a cliffhanger. So I don't tend to recommend it a lot because sometime after it was published, some not so great things happened in the author's life, and she hasn't published any new work since, so I don't think we really know for certain if this series is ever going to be completed. But this is a book where there is no romance storyline. The main relationship, the main story of this book is a friendship story between a human princess named Sylvie and a Pegasus named Eben. In this fantasy kingdom, the Pegasi are more than just winged horses. They are an intelligent species with their own society and culture and history, but their language is basically incomprehensible and unpronounceable for humans. And because their way of life depends on this strong alliance between the Pegasi and the humans, a lot of measures are taken to sort of enable some amount of communication between them, including the ceremonial bonding of royal family members of each species with each other. But Sylvie and Eben's bond is different. It turns out they can actually directly telepathically communicate with each other. And so they are able to form this true close friendship that challenges a lot of the norms of their society. Now, I am willing to be patient and accepting if this story never gets finished, because I know that, like, things happen. But I would really love to see how this story is supposed to conclude one day. Anyhow, that was my list of books for this topic. I think this is going to end up being a pretty short video. Yay, hooray. Let me know if you have any favorite friendships in science fiction and fantasy books. I hope you're having a nice day. That is all. Bye for now.